Welcome back to the Introduction to Materials. In this video, we're going to make the crevices of lava that are currently in between the rocks of our material a bit more interesting by changing their color based on the angle at which we are viewing the surface.
And this adds a very nice effect to the overall material.
And it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is.
Oh, it's easy.
So what we're going to do to create this effect is use a Fresnel material expression. And before we even jump into the material editor, I wanted to bring up our whiteboard and take a moment and explain to you how a Fresnel works. The first and most important explanation for those of us who don't speak French is that it's actually spelled like Fresnel, but don't say it that way. Now here's how it works. Let's say we have a camera in our Unreal scene. So that horrible drawing is a camera. Now let's have a surface that we're looking at, and for this particular example, let's use a sphere. I mean, that's what we're looking at inside the material editor. That's actually a pretty good circle.
That's not bad
for drawing it freehand. Now, when we are looking at any surface inside of Unreal, in general, if we're not using any sort of transparency, the back side of that surface doesn't really mean anything to us. It's just this one side of it that we can see. So that's all I'm really going to be paying attention to in terms of this Fresnel. And what a Fresnel is going to do is take the angle of incidence of the camera's ray and use that as a way to feed back information. Now, that sounds really, really technical, so let me break it down for you. Our camera is looking at this surface at a given angle, and I'm going to try to draw this as straight as I can, so we'll hold down the shift key. That's pretty straight on. Now, let's assume, we're just going to pretend that this line is hitting right in the center of our sphere. Obviously, it's not, but we're going to pretend like it is.
Right.
Now, what a Fresnel is actually going to do is take all of the angles coming off of the surface, and it's going to put those in relation to this angle and feed back a number between 0 and 1. Anywhere that the angle of the surface is parallel to the camera, so if the surface is pointing right back to us, we end up with a value of 0.
That's right.
So if the surface is facing us dead on, we get a value of 0. If the surface's angle is perpendicular to the camera, such as down here or up here on top, we end up with a value of 1. And I'll try to draw a little 1 up here. That's all there is to it. Now, how does this actually apply to Unreal? Well, let's go take a look. I'm going to jump back over into Unreal Ed, and let's open up the material editor, and let's create a new material. So we'll leave this in the Zach materials. Let's go ahead and put this in the materials group, and we'll call this Fresnel example. And to keep things nice and simple, what I'm going to do is just take my emissive channel or diffuse. It doesn't really matter, one or the other. We're going to grab a Fresnel material expression, drag that in like so, and you'll notice it has a normal input, and then it just has one output. We're going to plug this right into diffuse.
And you can see right there, it's working exactly as you just described over in the whiteboard. The pixels that are directly in line with our viewing ray from the camera, just straight out of the camera, and what we hit first is black.
That's right, getting a value of 0.
That's right. While all the way out at the edges, as we get further and further out to the edge, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter all the way up until the color is white. We're getting a 1 back.
That's right. Now, if you really want to drive this home by getting rid of the excess shading material that we don't need, we could take our lighting model and set it to unlit, and then instead of plugging this into diffuse, which means nothing on an unlit material, we could plug this into emissive. And now no matter what angle you view it from, it's always going to look the same.
Yeah.
So notice something about the Fresnel, though. As we move our viewing angle, as our camera moves around, so does the information that feeds back. It always keeps up with us, if you will. So that's going to be really handy to make that lava change color from one angle to the next. Now, that's only half the battle. Why is it only half the battle? Because we don't want our lava to go from white to black.
No, the question is, why are we really using this Fresnel? I mean, we can see that we can get information to find out what the angle is of the surface that we're looking at in respect to us.
That's right.
Being the camera.
Think of this guy as a driver.
But that's right. But now we need to interpolate between two colors.
That's right. What is he driving? He's going to be driving two colors. So what I'm going to do is pull this guy out of the way, and while we're sitting here playing in our example material, I'm going to show you a new node called a linear interpolation. Now, or linear interpolate, excuse me. And it's
LERP.
abbreviated to LERP.
Generally, we just say, hey, drop a LERP in there.
Drop a LERP in, and it's so commonly used that it's actually slave to the L key as a hotkey. So if you hold down L and left click, you'll always get a LERP, which is very handy. Now, what does a LERP actually do? It's going to take two colors, color A and color B, and it's going to blend in between them based on some sort of an alpha value. A value of 0 will blend us 100% to color A. A value of 1 will blend us 100% to color B. Now, before we go any further, let's prove that. I'm going to, just for our example, not the kind of habit I expect you to really get into, let's bring in a vector parameter. Just because I want a color picker so that I don't have to worry about actual colors. Again, I don't want you guys to make a habit of doing this. I'm just doing it because because I'm lazy. And let's say orange on one side, and let's do something completely away from orange, like blue. We'll plug that into B. Okay, now before we do anything having to do with the Fresnel, I'm just going to disconnect this. We'll leave it kind of go to the corner. Go away. We're going to plug this right into our emissive channel, and we're going to get an error because we're missing our input alpha. It's actually a good point. If you're ever missing an input, you will get this sort of default texture look and an error. Now what I'm going to do is bring in a constant. It has a value of 0 by default. Let's just plug that into alpha, and we get orange. 100% completely orange, no question. Now let's jump over back into our constant, and we'll set this to 0.2. Ooh, starting to change color. 0.3. 0.4, 0.5. You
can see more and more blues getting introduced.
That's right. You see us blending over. Now, and we go all the way to 1, blue. And now we're 100% blue. Now, this is all cool and all, but when our alpha is one constant color, all we're doing is blending in between two existing colors. This becomes like a mixer. If we start
at that point, why have it to begin with? Just put that color in.
That's right. Just pick your new color and use that. But the cool thing about doing this is this alpha can go on a pixel-by-pixel basis, as does the Fresnel. So let's plug our Fresnel into the alpha, and bink.
Very nice.
We get an orange sphere that stays blue at the fringes, which is actually kind of a psychedelic sort of effect. Now, if we take a look at the Fresnel's properties, we have an exponent value. And what this exponent is, again, remember our power node that we've been using in a couple of previous videos? We use that for contrast. Well, that's kind of what this is doing here. The higher your exponent, the higher the contrast between your two edges. In a way, it's just kind of a way to tighten up your effect. So as I push this even higher, like let's say to 5, you'll notice we get more orange and less blue because we're tightening up the contrast between where the two exist. Now, if I set this way down, like say to 1, we get a lot of blue because it's a really soft change, really gradual. And you set it down to 0.2 and you get almost nothing. If you set it to 0, you go all the way down. Actually, you shouldn't do that because you're kind of destroying the idea of having a Fresnel in the first place. So let's set this to, 2? Maybe 1 looked pretty good. I like that.
Looks cool.
I like that soft effect.
Yeah.
Now, just for the fun of it, let's save our changes. Let's close out of here, and then I'm going to apply this to the floor.
Okay.
Let's take a look at what we got. If we deselect the floor, over right here where we are standing, if we look straight down at the floor, we have orange because the angle of the floor is pointed straight back at us. But as we start to turn our camera upwards, that angle gets more and more shallow, or I guess steeper, depending on how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And as we start to change that angle, we start to shift back over to blue. If we could somehow get our camera almost completely parallel to the floor, you'll notice at the horizon, we fall almost completely to 100% blue. So we're just blending in between the two. This is the technology we're going to use to drive a change in our lava's color. That's how we're going to do it. So let's go back into the generic browser. Let's reapply our matte Zach Rocks material. Sorry, I had to say it with emphasis. And let's double-click this to open up our material editor yet again. Now, currently, we're just using a glow color vector. And that's cool. I have no problem with that, but we're going to embellish upon that a little. Let's say glow color becomes glow color 1. Now, let's make a copy of this. So Control-C, Control-V. And you'll see that by doing that, I get the same description as well, which is going to be useful. I'm going to take my original, and we'll actually set that to glow color 2. So now I have 2 colors. So I have the, let's set maybe our second color to something a little bit more red. So we'll take our green and we'll just set that down to 0.
Okay.
Now don't worry about the fact that it's plugged in and things just got a little scary. That's totally cool. The next thing we want to do is bring in our linear interpolation. We'll wait for autosave to get out of the way. I'm going to give us some room. And let's bring in a lerp. So hold down L, left click, and there you go. Now I'll zoom in so you can see this nice and easy. We're going to take color 1 and plug it into A. We're going to take color 2 and plug it into B. And we need some sort of an alpha, so let's use another Fresnel. Drag in, bink, like so, and voila. Okay, now we're going to put this into our multiply in place of our original single color, and there we go.
Very nice.
We have red at the fringes, and we have orange taking place in the center. And now by taking our Fresnel and adjusting our exponent value, maybe down to 2 or even down to 1, we start to get a lot more of that orange value. And I like this because it gives the impression of almost more heat. Like the closer you are to it, the hotter it's going to feel. And I don't know, I want to play. Give me a second to increase the glow intensity a little bit. I kind of like it maybe down to 5. There we go.
Okay.
I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and apply this. And, of course, like we've been doing, I just want to see the effect kind of come to life. So I'll move my windows around just a little bit. And there we go. So in the distance, our lava is primarily red. And as it gets underneath us, it starts to glow a bright, brilliant orange.
Very nice.
So that's what I wanted to cover in this video. It's just a way to take our material and make it a little more complex by shifting colors in between two things. The last thing I want to bring up, and I'd have to get a little fancy to show it to you, and that is that our Fresnel can accept normals. If we jump back over to the whiteboard for just a moment, you'll notice that I was just taking the surface angle into account, and by default, that's what the Fresnel is going to do. However, if you insert a normal map into this, so let's say I apply a normal map. That's really bad. Pretend there's an A right there.
Okay.
So we have a normal map. This normal map is going to be used to perturb all of these angles before the Fresnel is calculated. So if you had a normal map that looked like a whole bunch of cracks and crevices, all of these angles of incidence are going to start to branch off in a whole bunch of different directions because of that normal map. And you're going to start to get varying values. But let me prove it to you because it's a whole lot cooler. Let's Alt-Tab back over into Unreal. I'm going to close out this material. Let's go back into our little package, and I'm going to open up our Fresnel example. And what I want is some normal map. So let's bring in a texture sample. We'll scroll down a little bit, bring in a texture sample node. And I'll just open up the generic browser and let's find something. If I pop back over to our, let's see, we were using the ASC wall stone. There we go. This should have something I can use. So let's use that rock we've been using. I just like it. It doesn't have little strings of bricks in it for some reason. I just don't want that right now. So we'll select this. We'll close and apply. So we have a normal map. And let's just drag this in. Let's get it all connected up. So bink, right into our normal. And voila. Now look at this. It looks like we've applied a bump, but we really haven't. What we've done is we've perturbed those surface normals. All of those angles of the surface have been offset by our normals before our Fresnel is calculated. I just really was wanting to show that to you because it is a cool effect and you can get some cool results out of it. But with that, that is everything that I wanted to teach you inside of this lecture. So let's move on to the next video.